Live from the Washington, D.C. area, all empowered citizens need to know about intelligent use of resources, smart governance, inclusive communities, smart industry, and healthy, thriving urbanization. This is Smart Sustainability, the TV talk about shaping a sustainable future in the digital age with Nicolette DeVidar. A storm on the Capitol, something that hasn't happened since 1814. What does that mean for democracy? Is navigating anger a skill we all need to have in our toolbox for 2021? Is it part of our internal compass for democracy in 2021? That's what we want to talk about tonight. Good evening, I'm Nicolette DeVidar, and Happy New Year despite all that's happening. 2021 is just a few days young and already has left a deep imprint on probably just about everyone. So if you're hoping that 2021 is going to get easier, you're likely gonna be disappointed. What becomes clear though is that we need a few things in our toolkit this year to navigate the vast ongoing shift and the deep emotions bubbling under the surface. More than ever, do we need a culture of dialogue where we truly exchange why we do things, how we feel, and try to understand why and how things have gotten to the point they have. Curiosity is the bridge. Now, don't get me wrong, I say this clearly here on the show. Violence, no matter who's committing it, is utterly unacceptable at any point in time, as is fueling the flames. We all have personal responsibility in navigating into calmer waters. It starts by setting our attitude for this year with an open mind and real dialogue, I believe. We need a culture of consciousness and orientation, a healthy portion of self-reflection, and a willingness to learn. No matter where you stand, this has not yet happened. The extremes on both sides are as far apart as they can be. But life is balanced at the center, not at the rim. So it's up to you, up to all of us, to find and work towards the center. We can't get there with a closed mind, and we can't get there by finger pointing and blaming either. I say it again, curiosity in one another is the bridge. So let's start with an open dialogue on difficult issues. Joining us tonight are 7 guests, each from different sectors and backgrounds, to talk about democracy, anger, their voice, and how to move forward. I start the discussion with a former U.S. ambassador, a Republican. He served on the White House staffs of President Ronald Reagan and George H. Walker Bush. He's an adjunct professor of diplomacy at the Institute of World Politics and the senior vice president of the Council of American Ambassadors. Welcome, G. Philip Hughes. I talked to Ambassador Hughes prior to the show. Here's what he had to say. Ambassador Hughes, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
You've been a Republican all your life. You've been inside the establishment. You've worked in the private sector. You've represented this country abroad. How do you feel about what happened last week?
The assault on the Capitol, I mean, it was terrifying. It was disgusting. It was disappointing. Words escape me to express how awful that event was. It was coming as it did in January. It's a bad beginning to 2021 and an awful capstone to a 2020 that was punctuated by, well, all too many terrible events.
Do you think democracy is under attack or evolving?
I don't think that democracy is under attack, and I don't think it's endangered. If anything, what happened at the Capitol, once the situation of disorder was got under control, should reassure everyone that our institutions are strong, and they went on functioning, resuming where they were so rudely interrupted by the crowd, and producing the result that everyone knew was inevitable. Everyone who was thinking about it anyway knew was inevitable, and that is, in fact, the result of our constitutional order. The election by the Electoral College of a new president who will take office at noon on January 20th.
What do you think does this do to the Republican Party?
I think it probably, pardon me for adjusting these earbuds.
Sure.
I think that it probably, for the moment, divides the Republican Party between those who are dedicated to principles and those who might be just dedicated to one man. That latter group will, I think, gradually accommodate or assimilate to something different, because that one man is aged, is passing from the scene, may soon be, even more deeply politically embarrassed and disqualified than he already is, and then they will have to look elsewhere. That's what I think.
So what would that do, though, to the Republican voter base? Would they then would you expect that this then equally splits off?
No, I don't think so. First of all, the genius, if you read at all Chris DeMuth's great article in this week's Wall Street Journal, he reminded us that one of the big advantages, one of the big dividends we've earned over more than 2 centuries now, nearly 2.5, from the Electoral College system, is that it discourages third parties. Third parties just don't thrive in the long run. So I think that those who are disappointed in the outcome of the election because President Trump didn't win as they hoped, and the results couldn't be overturned as President Trump misleadingly led them to think, that they will gradually enfold themselves back as Republican voters if they can stay engaged. I mean, the challenge for the Republican Party is to reach out to and keep engaged the voters that President Trump activated. He brought new voters out, and he brought 10 million more voters out for himself this time than he did the last time. Those are, some of the headlines of the last election that aren't very much remarked, but they're pretty remarkable. The challenge for Republicans is to keep those voters engaged rather than have them drift back to inactivity or passivity or just plain resentment for the future.
So with such a large spread, though, across the voter base, and not just in the Republican Party, but generally, do you think it's conceivable that we are going to see more fractions of parties or more split-offs? In other words, that we move away from the two-party system at this point? I
think that's very hard to sustain here in the United States, given our institutional structure. We've had many third parties over a long time. One third party, Ross Perot's Reform Party, helped cost my boss, President George H.W. Bush, re-election on the basis of something that was, I think a lot of people regarded as kind of a personal grudge on Perot's part. But those third parties have come and gone. None has really lasted since the Republican Party displaced the Whigs in the years immediately before the Civil War.
Now, the United States has exported democracy to other nations. What would you expect? How would recent events impact America's image abroad? I mean, you've represented the United States abroad. Where do you think we stand on this one?
Well, it's embarrassing to have such a spectacle portrayed in front of the world, broadcast in front of the world. What happened. It's very lamentable. I was recently reading a 3-point letter from the Public Diplomacy Council and one of its affiliated partners, I guess you could say, arguing for three verities that our public diplomacy professionals should be emphasizing in our messaging to foreign audiences. I can't replicate them verbatim, but what I'd say is that we should be emphasizing the stability and durability of our institutions, and that they still, a mob out of control notwithstanding, they still represent a standard and a beacon for freedom and democracy around the world. You have to look past a couple hours event at the Capitol, which in any event was taken under control, and remember the bigger picture, the bigger American story here.
Last question, lessons to learn from that going forward.
The principal lesson that I would learn if I were in President Trump's shoes is, well, let's go back. I can't be in President Trump's shoes, and I doubt that any future president will comport himself the way President Trump's done. There may be practical lessons on Capitol Hill for preparation for large demonstrations and making sure that they are under control, that they don't get out of control. I think that a vital lesson is that presidents need to be, and political leaders generally need to be, much more careful about the words they use and the messages they convey to their supporters, especially in these times of inflamed passions. I think there's another lesson too, and that is we need to find a way to restore some mutual respect among citizens for our differences of opinion, and not to elevate those to the point of violent conflict.
All right, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you on. My next guest, Shirley Genwright. She's the chair of Fairfax County's Committee of Communities of Trust, an initiative that promotes positive relationships between public safety agencies and their communities. She was an active participant in the civil rights movement, marching with Dr. Martin Luther King, and is a retired federal employee. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Particularly on such a short notice, I may have to add, since happenings of last week, everything was shifted around, and I reached out to Ms. Genwright on Friday evening, and she's right here with us on Sunday, which is fantastic. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And actually, I wanted to add something else, because you got a royal title of Mafor, which means Queen Mother, and APC, which is blessed by God, by the Northwest Funds Council of Cameroon and Africa. Those are so beautiful titles.
Yes.
As a side note. So, for our viewers to understand, the Communities of Trust Committee is a diverse citizen group that focuses on building positive relationships, right? Who are partners in this initiative?
Correct.
Who are partners in this initiative?
Right now we have over 60 organizations and individuals. We have the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or active members. We have the Department of Justice, the State Patrol, the Fairfax County Police, the Sheriff's Office. We have Apple Federal Credit Union, Lanier Corporation, those owners of the Nationals. The Washington football team has now joined us. We have a lot of citizens or faith groups who have also joined us and who were members before the killing of George Floyd. Since that time, we've had other organizations, mosques and synagogues that have reached out. We want to know how can they become a part of the solution with the hatred, the racism that's going on in this country. So they reached out to us, to me particularly, to say, how can we help? I'm pleased that we have a mechanism in place where they can come and we can direct them into helping with some of the things that we are doing.
You marched with Dr. Martin Luther King. What was your reaction on January 6th?
Wow. Had they been black, I would have thought about the dogs that were sicked on us and the times when the water was sprayed on them, we got sprayed with the hoses. But it was like, wow. But I thought more about how doing the civil rights movement with most of the individuals being black, how we were treated. And doing the Black Lives Movement, during the summer, how we were met with hostility. The police had riot gear. Like, they had expected something to happen. And it's so unfortunate because it seems as if any time blacks are gathered or think about being gathered, it's like we're going to do something. We're always a threat. And you think negatively instead of thinking positive. So here on January 6th, when they should have been watching, they turned their head, they closed their eyes.
So between when you think back in the 60s in the movement to today, has there something changed in your view? I mean, yes, we know there's a lot of factors that have changed, but does it feel to you like something has changed?
I think a lot of things have changed. I think the past 4 years set us back because of the rhetoric that was coming from the White House. There was racism, there was hatred, but with Trump in office, he brought out what had been hidden for a long time. So he gave the power to a minority set of people that he basically told, I will protect you. But we were doing some positive things. I think this has set us back a lot because the trust that we have been trying to build with law enforcement. We know that law enforcement was involved on November 6th. So that is going to really set us back in whether or not we can trust law enforcement. So public safety agencies are undergoing a huge transformation. With COVID, and as you just mentioned, there are many flaws of our systems that are coming more and more to the forefront, that are more evident. So there's an added different dimension to the public safety agencies. So forcing them not only to rethink actually the definition of what is public safety, but then also how do we actually maintain law and order while allowing all those changes. So within an evolving redefinition of public safety, how do we balance the need of stability, law and order on the one hand, and on the other hand, this whole new emerging space of public safety that has completely different dimensions to it, like with public health, with COVID, with forces that are coming to the forefront that were bubbling underneath up to this point. How can we balance that? What's the committee working on in terms of how do we strike a balance? Well, we have different groups that we are still working with. And, there was this discussion on defunding the police. And I look at reallocating resources to the programs that they have not defund. But there are some programs and some responsibilities that have been given to police departments that really should not be there, especially those dealing with people with mental illness, homelessness. Because a person is homeless does not mean that they need to be arrested because they're sleeping under a bridge, because they have nowhere else to go. Those are responsibilities that should not be given to any police department. So I think when they talk about defunding, I talk about reallocating, distributing the roles and responsibilities as well as the funds that go along with that. And that would give the police departments and their officers more of an opportunity to really go into the communities and get to know the people that are in those communities, do more community policing. That was done years ago when they would go in with their bike teams. But they don't have the opportunities to do that as often as they do. We talk about training. We can still train a lot, but if an officer has the mindset to do something, or you have an officer who is actually a racist or a supremacist, white supremacist, all the training in the world isn't going to do any good, because in the back of their mind, they still know what they want to do. But we have to balance with the training, the redistributions of funds, and actually getting the officers and law enforcement to know the people that they have been given the task of protecting and supporting. So it's not just about protecting. And what I tell the community as well, this isn't just about the police or law enforcement. We also have a responsibility in getting to know them. It's okay to say good morning to them. It's okay to buy them a cup of coffee. If they don't walk up to you and say good morning, hey, break the ice. Start a conversation with them, because when they leave home in the morning, they leave their families and they expect to go back home to their families the same as we do. Law enforcement positions are considered very progressive. They're lucrative, some of them, as far as salary is concerned. But these officers chose those careers just as others chose to be an information technology or an engineer. So you cannot hate them because they chose to be someone who would help protect you and the community. And again, what happened on Wednesday, it was just something that happened. I mean, it was well planned. But we have to look at how do we get past that and not blame all police officers for that.
Yes, correct. Now, can citizens reach out directly to the Committee of Communities of Trust?
Yes.
Just for our viewers to know, if they want to reach you, can they reach out to the committee?
Yes, it's communitiesoftrust.com, and we have you can send us an email from there, or you can email us at communitiesoftrust@gmail.com.
So, did you hear that? That is for you if you want to reach out. There's a direct access, as Shirley just mentioned, and we will also post this on our Facebook. I'm going to move on to my next guests. I want to shift gears a little bit here. I have 3 more guests that I wanted to introduce who are voters, and I thought it would be really interesting to hear and get actually their perspective as well. So joining me here is Don Folden. He's with me in the studio. He's African-American, Republican voter, owner of Capitol Buddy Tours in DC, and self-positioned truth conductor. We have Cindy Rollings, a businesswoman, immigrant, and Trump supporter. And I have Al Ford, who's a basketball coach and a diversity team leader for Xerox. So they're joining me all here via Zoom, except Don, who's right here with me in the studio. I wanted to get the voters' perspective, and we're covering both sides here. So I want to start with you, Don. I remember last time you were on my show, you mentioned that you are an African-American Republican voter. So let me ask you, how did you react to Thursday last week?
Man, that's one of the saddest days that I've ever experienced since I've been in DC. I'm just sorry more people weren't killed. I mean, seriously. Because a lot of people still think today this is a joke.
What's the joke?
That going into the Capitol, because it's the people's building, that they had the right to do what they did, and they don't. They weren't invited. They destroyed things. You know, you got people that you're paying to do a job. Let them do their job. And if they're not doing their job, then this is just totally, it's unacceptable.
Now you say that Capitol Buddy Tours is one of the best told African American stories when you take people through DC and you tell stories that are normally not told. What do you think you're going to say on your future tours about January 6th, 2021?
Well, actually, my tour goes through the Senate circle and the congressional circle. So,
but you haven't told the story yet.
I haven't.
What are you gonna say?
I don't know. I really don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's not going to be good.
That'll be an interesting one. I'd love to pick up on this one.
Yeah.
Cindy, let's see. Where's Cindy? I can see her right here on the screen. Now, you are an outspoken, well, you were a voter for Trump and an outspoken Trump supporter. I think that's fair to say. So you're an immigrant, you're a business owner, you see things from a different perspective in many other ways. What was your reaction last week?
Well, I also want to mention I did serve in the United States Air Force as well, as an immigrant. So it was, for me, being in this country from 1989 after 9/11, it would be considered one of the saddest days as of right now. I was very disappointed. The lack of security that we had when we had the top people in our government in one roof and the security was maintained the way it was. It does not matter what kind of protest that was going on that day, it should have been more secure than what it was. So I was very disappointed to the people that actually did all the breakage, broke into the Capitol, because I can't say I just don't agree with what they've done. But at the same time, I'm going to go try to do something, but in a Capitol building, they're supposed to be the one to fight and to make sure that things like that does not happen. So from being in the military or being, once I came to this country, I knew the White House, the Capitol building, the Pentagon, all these are the most secured place we have in this country. And for me to see that day how easy it was for regular public to get into that building and to harm all the high-ranking people in our government, to be attacked, it was disgrace and it was very shameful. I believe the world, rest of the world is laughing at us, and I'm not proud of what happened that day. It shows that our security is awful at this moment, and this is the United States. That shouldn't have happened. No matter who did it, it should not happen.
So does that do something, though, in terms of, does that impact your, the feeling in terms of how you would vote?
No, I vote on the policies, our policies, what are the Democrat and the Republican parties, what they put in front of us, what it will help me, my children, that's how so that will not change. I do not feel any difference than what my president has done for the last 4 years, everything that he mentioned that he was going to do. I received the result, and I do not regret the last 4 years what this president has done for me. But I would say that in last 4 years, from day one, if you talk about hate started from the time this gentleman said that he was going to run for the presidency. So the hate started from that day. The hate started from the left side of the people in our country. If you can have people in the video say, attack all the Republicans, does not matter where they are. In TV, in videos, you're like, they're talking about attacking. And then when you have the media, you have protests going on with the firing building, people are running in behind of you, and they're still calling for a peaceful protest. So all that happened in the last 6 to 9 months, it gave a lot of us a different perspective is what is safe? What is peaceful protest? If you did not call the fire in your background a peaceful, that's what you call a peaceful protest, then what is this supposed to be? And this was not peaceful. So we called it as it was. It was not a peaceful protest because it was horrible what happened on January 6th. But I would say the last 4 years, what happened in our country, how the left treated the president, how the left treated as me as a Republican Party, like I do not have a voice. I did not have right to support my president. I did not have right to speak. I was shamed. I was, called names just because I supported a person who helped me in last 4 years of the things that I'm doing. So that was not fair.
Hold on a second here. I have to call Don in on this one because you're also a Republican voter.
Right.
So what's your take on this? You see things the same way?
No.
Okay, where do you differ?
No, I don't see it at all. First of all.
But you voted Republican, did you not?
No, I did not. I did not vote Republican this time.
Okay. Oh, this time you didn't. Okay.
I didn't. Okay, and I couldn't.
Okay.
And the reason being is, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. And right now, we got too many people that are just falling for it because they're benefiting from it. But look at the damage that's being done.
But I'm hearing damage from a lot of different sides, and we do have damage. I think we all agree that there has been a lot of violence, and it's all bad. As I said at the very beginning, violence is always bad. But I think, are we not falling into the trap of pointing fingers and saying this is what happened there, but it doesn't happen there, and vice versa?
No. See, here's the problem. Right now, right is wrong and wrong is right.
But that depends where you sit.
No. Right is wrong and wrong is right, no matter where you sit. In this environment today, right is wrong and wrong is right. And until we get right being right and wrong being wrong, nothing is going to change.
Yeah, that's very abstract. So I'm gonna bring Al on here, if we can get him on the screen. Al, I know you focus on personal development a lot. Coaching is like close to your heart. And as I recall last time when I had you in the show back in November, when we talked actually about how deeply divided the nation is, you mentioned from your experience that you were very relieved that night that Biden had won. So when you look at last week, Thursday, how do you feel today about that?
Yes. Nicolette, thank you for allowing me to speak and be a part of this meeting. I appreciate the forum, and this is something that affects me very deeply. And I want to use something as a symbol. We gather here together, our panel here tonight, with your leadership, and we talk, and we did come with the understanding that we're not pointing fingers. We don't want to assess blame more so to one party than another, but that becomes abstract at times too. But I just want to draw attention to the fact that words carry great weight. And our two lovely guests that we have in their statements just beginning, and statements can be wrong or misperceived, but this is where we have friends here tonight of one accord. Don said that sorry that more people were not killed because they weren't invited. And then Margaret said, hate started with the left. So I feel that these people are here with us and that we're trying to travel together, but words spark emotions and passion, and we have to understand the weight of that. And so how I feel is directly related to historically how we've moved forward. FBI has collected data over the past two elections dating back to 1990, that during election years and specifically right after elections, emotions and passions spike into hate crimes. I mean, that's measurable, like a spike. So what do we say, even with Margaret, about the threat assessment that was surrounding January 6th gave us indicators of what that threat may evolve or spark into. So I was very disappointed, as Margaret said, that I have to concur with her in our armed forces or our security, and that is not my field, but I do know that the threat assessment should have been taken more seriously because there were indicators historically that there would be a spike in emotion and passion, and we know how quickly that can turn, especially over these last 4 years where we've seen evidence of the emotion and the passion spiking.
Yeah, but let me ask you something, and that actually goes to all three of you. So when we know that there's so much bubbling emotion under the surface, and it sounds like there's still a big discrepancy. What Cindy said, and I know you mentioned Margaret because I know Cindy has a short name and a long name, and I called her by the short name, so just so there's no confusion for you viewers at home as well. So there is, it's the point is, how do we move away from that objectivity and saying, can we start by saying everybody has a point or validity in what they're saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We can start there. And it also is an integral part to be able to try to understand, research, and study the dynamics that are involved with hate crimes, the dynamics that are formed, and what is the accelerants that actually fan flames that lead to spikes in the emotional acts, the hate crimes that we have in this country. So it is something that we can do on a number of different points that I could have my list and we could all have our list. And this is a call to all of us. And this is a signal as of January 6th of how serious this is. This is so important to our democracy today and always, but moving forward, yes, let's all in one accord, beginning with our group and our families, take this so seriously as a warning and a call to move forward more strongly and more motivated together.
But something also, I mean, there's something that leads up to that. And it seems to me when you look back in the media landscape and when you look back in most of the discussion, what you hear on mainstream television, etc., very often when you think back, the main topic was always just about Trump did this, Trump did this, Trump did this, Trump did this. But I have yet to see the media outlets that actually ask the right questions. So let me ask you, if you look back to something that leads up to that, did media not ask the right questions? How can we not have talked about all those bubbling emotions, all those things that we overlooked up to that point? Who has not done their job?
Mm-hmm. And journalism, I worked for the Washington Post. I was in operations for 17 plus years, but I was involved in storyboard rooms at different times to understand that our journalistic effort has taken more of a weight on opinions and commentary versus reporting and the drive to report the facts. That is a responsibility of journalism in America that dates back to the beginning of this country.
Yeah, but this,
So I think that is a failure of where it's turned more into commentary and opinion than reporting and digging for the facts.
Oh, I would agree.
Go ahead, yes, ma'am.
And I think one big issue is also that I have a feeling that, because what we're all talking about is emotion, so this is not even so much about facts, it's about emotions. Is there generally an uncomfortable, so just being uncomfortable with talking openly about emotions?
I would say, and that's why I wanted to bring up what I brought to our discussion, and very with respect and deference to Don and Margaret, because maybe I misperceived what they said, but it's that drive and the willingness to be able to say, Don, I heard you say this. Is that exactly what you meant? Margaret, I heard you say that hate started with the left. Do you really mean that? Or was that taken out of context?
Okay, we're going to follow up. Give me a second here. We're going to start with Cindy on the screen. Cindy, can we put you back up here?
Well, my point was not that overall that it started from the left. I believe I went from what spiked me was when Shirley mentioned that, about this president, the racism, and all that. And Nicolette said, which I think I tried to put overall picture of last 4 years instead of just the 6th that day. It was my view of how everything in the last 4 years was so negative toward the president. I'm not in the government anymore. I do not hold position like Shirley and everyone. I'm just a regular public. The way I see it, the way I felt it, the way I experienced it, that's all I can say. And every time you open up a news channel, I've never heard anything that this president accomplished. But if I did do this study, Al, I found out all the things that he has done. But we have never, the media never, like when, interview was given, never said, hey, thank you, Mr. President, for doing this. The fund to the Black college for they don't have to come in every year. They were given 8 years in a row. And when people were calling him, he was against the Muslim. And then here's the president who actually made the peace treaty with all the Muslim countries. So everything that he was portrayed, but it was the opposite from all the the things that he has done. So I guess when I did say anything, it was my overall picture of what happened. And here we're blaming because what Trump said on the 6th that leaked to maybe what happened on the 6th. No, what happened is overall is bad. I do not agree. Like I said, I'm not supportive of this. These Trump supporters, if they have done this, there's an investigation going on and it is wrong. Overall, it is wrong. But my point was that how come when Maxine Waters said on live TV, said, go attack the Republican, that was also, it's a straight attack. It was attack. It was not, but nobody talked about it. How come Democrats said, hey, we cannot say that on live TV? That will, give other people the chance to attack the Republican. She said, wherever you see them at the restaurant, here, there, everywhere. So I just feel there's a huge difference with the media, with how the Democrat in last 4 years, the way they behaved. It seems like we didn't see what was happening versus what happening in last 10 days, or anything that the president said, it was turned around and portrayed in a different way. If he was a racist, how was he helping all this, the Black college or the low, unemployment, all this? But my point was we were not talked about it in any media. So that's a big question.
But that brings us back to not asking the right questions. Don, I'm going to give you a brief moment and then I'm going to introduce the next round of guests because I think we have emotions we need to work on. Let's go.
Does she support Stop the Steal? Does she support Stop the Steal?
What are you saying?
Stop the steal. That was the chant.
That Stop the Steal. Does she still support Stop the Steal?
Cindy,
I support Stop the Steal.
Uh-huh.
Well, I support my president, and I am disappointed with this election.
Ma'am, I asked you.
Let her talk.
Okay. That's a yes or no question. Do you still support Stop the Steal?
Without the facts, without thing, I'm not going to say if it was steal or not.
Exactly, and that's not.
Because let me say this. See, this is the problem. See, we got some people right now.
You just, the way you posted, Don, I'm going to have to say that. So when you put someone on the spot and it says, does she still support Stop the Steal, there's an underlying connotation that there's a judgment in that. And I think we need to watch out that we don't get into that.
But see, what I'm saying is this, this weekend, you have the 16th, more people that were here on the 6th are coming back. Now, if nobody all of the courts have said the election was fair,
Oh, I don't want to, this is not the topic tonight, so I don't want to waste any time on that because...
But this is what it all started,
No,
though.
it isn't. It started way back, and as we just heard, the emotions are still very much divided on that. I do want to introduce my next two guests, and then I've introduced everyone, and then we open up the floor, because I really think, as it sounds like, there is still, and we just saw that, there's a very different way of perceiving things, so it's a wide range. We all have bubbled up emotions. We all feel very strongly about things, how they happen and how they evolved, and everyone looks through things based from their perspective. I think that's a great understanding to start with that. So I want to bring in my next two guests, the last ones here in this round, before we open up the floor. So we have, joining us here is Omar Battle. He's a community mediator, also a smart sustainability community ambassador. And I have Bill Protzman, who is a musician who is dedicated to using music as a transformation tool to transform anger and negative emotions. And as we just heard, I think actually we all need to equip ourselves with a toolbox, I believe, going into this year, it looks like, to how we can actually get there and work through emotions so we get to a point of understanding. Omar, let's see, can I get you on the screen? Omar?
Nicolette?
Yes,
I'm here.
I can, yeah, perfect. So you're a community mediator, and we know so far mediation is mainly used in court. Now let me ask you directly, from looking all the things that are happening, is it time to bring mediation on a different level, to start mediating between larger fraction and use it more in public?
Yes, I would definitely agree. So what we need to have is more dialogue instead of debate. And debate is basically two people going back and forth to argue about who's right or who's wrong. Dialogue, which mediators or facilitators facilitate, is about an exchange. Mm-hmm. Two people are exchanging their points of view, their conclusions and positions, and talking about how they got there, talking about the beliefs, values, experiences, and influences that led them to those positions and conclusions.
Hmm. Bill, I'm going to put you on here for a second too, so you can explain to us what exactly it is that you're doing. Bill?
Unfortunately, I got an easy question.
I know, but I know you work with music to transform negative emotions.
Sure.
Explain to us briefly how you do this.
Well, scientifically, there are no negative emotions. They're just emotions. They're just feelings. It's brain chemistry. Mm-hmm. And when we get all wrapped up in judgment and taking positions and things like that based upon how we feel, we've blown it. We missed our chance. If you have a powerful emotion, you can use that. And you can use it for good, provided that you're willing to allow it to fully animate what you do. I was talking with a buddy before this, and he said, you know, we have to move through anger and towards something that is useful, like a response that works. And one of the beautiful things about music is it's like a laboratory. We can go and feel things safely to see how they kind of play within us. And with that understanding, we can then move forward, perhaps to connect with people who are also feeling those same kinds of things. Mm-hmm. But the moment we try to stuff the anger or let it leak out in some non-productive way, we miss the opportunity. And with this anger, well, that's a big one. You know, anger's hard. Mm-hmm. It comes up and it really gets us at a deep level, but it's getting all of us. You know, there's the anger of people who are doing the acts is as intense, I suspect, as the anger of the people who are wondering how that could happen. But that's a great place to come together. And until we figure out how to come together in terms of how we feel, mm-hmm. we're missing the opportunity for real dialogue. We can start talking, but it's just going to be a fight.
Yeah.
If we feel it the same way, wow, that's where things start. And that's where music lets us go.
I was going to ask you also about this. So can we, because when we go, is there a mechanism that we can all train ourselves so when all the rage comes up to sort of say, push the stop button and say, wait a minute, let me get in touch with my feelings first and stop that whatever emotions are coming out before we go into that gridlock of taking position?
It sounds so crystal crunchy and woo-woo, but the science on it is that our emotions are actually there for our guidance. They help us to make the right choices. And fight, flight, or freeze is one of those choices. But we can use that information if we don't stuff it to do things that are useful. So the initial anger that comes up, wow, there's great energy behind that. But if you let that anger motivate you to go out and break things and hurt people, that's not skillful. If you have a way of letting that anger come up and play fully within you, it will transform into power. And that's where you can do something. That's where it really matters. But you can't go around all prickly, with your anger right near the surface. Music is the way to let that I'm going to say it, the negative charge of the anger dissipate so that you can use what's left, the power that's left, to find common ground and do productive work and like start a country the way that we did a few 100 years ago now. And there's power in that, provided you're allow yourself to get there.
Could you see this on a larger scale? I mean, I'm just envisioning the angry mob that we just saw. I mean, those pictures were really terrible. Can you imagine what this would look like if people actually worked on themselves before it would get to that point?
Sure, I see hundreds of people marching hand in hand singing "We Shall Overcome," and Shirley, you were there. So, that's the skillful use of anger. I started an initiative. I had no idea this was all coming up. So at the end of last year and beginning this year, I've started an initiative to reach out to faith communities and help faith communities understand the power of music, that's transformational, and how easy it is to put that to work. And just taking a moment before anything else happens and sharing some music is a powerful way of realigning and coming together around something that isn't like the goal, it isn't the strategic thing. It's the unity that comes from experiencing the same kind of emotion together. That's the powerful moment. And so sure, there's definitely ways to do that. And they're not difficult or complicated. Human beings are resonators, and we resonate for that.
Yeah, and actually for you at home also to know that Bill does do a music quest where people can sign up, and it helps them, it helps you actually define emotions and learn how to use music for that purpose. So if you're interested, you can go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/SmartSustainabilityTV, and get some more information how you can join us. Now, Shirley, I would like to ask you, from all what you've heard here, in this discussion, what is your take on how the kind of work that communities have cut out in terms of bringing all of this together? Shirley?
What is my take on it?
Yes.
Well, as you said, I come back from my background always from the civil rights movement. So I've been in the United States for a long time. So I see the difference between what happens to Blacks, Muslims, and whites, and the Jewish community as well. And I still believe that until the past 4 years, the rhetoric has caused a lot of hatred and increased that. We saw more swastikas being spray painted on Jewish synagogues and schools and buildings. We saw more people being attacked. Colin Kaepernick kneeled to show attention to the injustices of Black men being killed by police officers. And he was attacked for that. And it was a lot of rhetoric, a lot of hatred, that he wasn't even able to get another job within the NFL because he was trying to bring attention to injustices of Blacks
But how do we move forward towards that? How do we look forward and not backwards to the last 4 years? Because I think people are always going to disagree on what the past 4 years were. So how do we adjust our focus forward?
I think in order to move forward for me as a Black person, is you have to understand the struggle that we went through. So I don't want to, I have a problem with an immigrant telling me he supported me and my family. Well, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, but support everybody. We elect presidents of the United States of America, the president for every citizen, not for this group or that group, but for everybody, so everyone should be treated equally. You know, but when you have one group that completely excluded, when we have our Black men and women can get killed with no justice. So we have to have, as Bill said, that dialogue, but part of that dialogue is understanding the history. And until you understand my history, we aren't going to move forward, because in your mind, you've already closed it out. I want people to see how Black babies were used as alligator bait. I want people to see how Black men were burned alive and lynched. That's our history.
So when you say go back to right, so what you said, we actually had a show on that once, coming to grips with history, which is important before we can move forward. So yes. So that's
part of that dialogue that we have to talk. I'm not sure where Margaret is from, but part of that dialogue is also understanding her culture.
Right.
Because her culture is different from mine. And that's what people do. We don't know each other.
Yes.
Nicolette?
And until we have those dialogues, you know, we won't understand each other.
Yes.
We probably have more in common than we don't have in common.
Yeah.
But we don't know because we don't sit down and talk.
Yeah. Omar, you have something to add.
Yes, I just wanted to chime in for a bit and talk about dialogue from a mediator's perspective and how that might look like in a large group facilitation. That large group facilitation might be done in a town hall or what we call a dialogue circle. And in that town hall or in that dialogue circle, everyone has the opportunity to speak. The mediator's role is going to be to foster non-judgmental communication. And non-judgmental communication might sound something like you might have somebody who says, oh, so you are a Republican. That must mean that you are against abortion. So the mediator would then come in and say, well, is that correct? Is that correct? Are you actually against abortion? And that allows the other person to respond. And if the person says, yes, they are against abortion, then the mediator or facilitator might come in and say, okay, so what's that about for you? Asking those open-ended questions to foster communication that allows people to understand each other.
Yeah, I think that's a totally important point. I really think if I had to pick one skill that we all need for this coming year, it's curiosity in one another, as I said at the intro. It's curiosity in understanding one another, the background, the culture, the why do people react the way they do. Because cultural upbringing, backgrounds, experiences, all goes in there and clouds our view in how we see things. So let me ask all of you, and I'm going to make the round here. We have 3 minutes left. Do you think democracy is under attack, or are we evolving? I'm going to start with you, Don.
It's under attack.
Okay.
And the reason I say it's under attack is because we're not really taking this serious. We need to put our foot down, say what we mean and mean what we say.
Becoming more authentic.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
All right? And if we don't do that, we're going to still get what we got.
Okay. Omar, I still have you on the screen, so I'm going to let you go next. What do you think? Democracy under attack or evolving?
I would say democracy is evolving due to having things like the protesters who barged into the Capitol, having that front and center on your television screen. You have things being recorded now. You have people who are Karens, so to speak, demonizing black men. And I think that actually causes democracy to evolve because more people are seeing those things happen and more people are being educated about those things.
Let's go to Cindy. Cindy, what do you think? Under attack or evolving?
I believe we are under attack because I feel like, you know, from 1989, when I came into this country, I feel like we just moved back. It's not the country where I landed. When I landed in this country, it was beautiful. When I walked in here, I was 13 years old. I didn't know what racism was. I didn't see any colors or anything, any different ways. So, but what I see now is very different, and it breaks my heart. It does. I feel like things are going in a different direction, you know, where I didn't see as much racism in 1989, the 90s. Now I see it's more of it, and the way our government and everything is. So it just, it's not where it's supposed to be.
So we'll see. Al, what's your take?
Yes.
Got to make it quick. Time's running out.
Evolution of democracy is happening, and at the same time, faults and fissures are being created that truly democracy is under attack as well.
So you say both is happening.
Both are happening, but the concept of democracy is meant to evolve with so many more media outlets. And that's why it has focus on the conductor, the leader, because even music can be used to fan the flames.
Okay, I need to, yes, that's right. So I'm going to move over to, I'm going to give it to Shirley quickly, please. What do you think? Under attack or evolving, Shirley?
I think it's under attack, but again, like Al said, it's evolving as well.
Great. So I'm going to go straight to Bill. Bill, what's your take on this?
Sometimes it takes an attack to get evolution going. So yes, let's have both.
Oh, I love all of these. That was a perfect roundup because I think we are actually all in the right place if we get the right skill set and toolbox to navigate through. Thank you so much. We're out of time. It's almost at the end of the show. So thank you so much to all of you for coming on and joining us tonight. And for you, I hope you learned something, and we'll see you next week. If you're interested with all your emotions, you can bring them to the table in where, you know, where we're going, because we do like authentic dialogue. That's what the show is all about. Thanks so much, and have a wonderful evening and a great week. Good night.
All right. Good night.
Good night, everyone.